Hello. I don't know what's going on with Restream. That's what I'm streaming via here. Oh, hey, Minnie. Look at Minnie in the background there. Hey, Minnie. She loves it when I pat her repeatedly like that. Loves it. Um, yeah, it's not talking to YouTube. It used to talk to YouTube. It doesn't talk to YouTube at the moment. Although the other stream that we're doing for Friday the 13th with the Clown Town, it is there. So I don't know what's going on. So I apologize for just like popping up here and there and everywhere and not giving anybody any notice. Hello. Were your ears burning? Because I was just talking about you. I I can see that we have a stream on Friday the 13th in my YouTube, but I couldn't like time this one. So, and I was doing it for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. I even like downloaded Firefox. Yeah. Anyway, here we are. How are we? What's the haps? Uh, I, oh no, lucky you didn't jump into the stream. Um, I'd like to announce that my pets are alive and well. They have not been stolen and eaten by any migrants, immigrants, undocumented aliens, etc. Okay, just in case people were worried. All right, but I live in Australia, so it's probably a little bit safer over here, just saying. Yep. I'm laughing, but underneath all that is a lot of racism. A lot. Um, if you would like to watch a really good video about how people talk about uh, people of color, white people talk about people of color, and make them do the thing like mention being savages, all right, which has been kind of like reclaimed to say, like I'm savage as in I'm sharp and like I will I'm the boss of you. Anyway, yeah, that it harkens back to very much like the bullshit of ooh, 4 minutes in. Can I say bull s? Anyway, um, oh, they eat dogs in Asia and stuff like that. Yeah, there's some people who don't like us eating any animals. Did you know? And uh, during desperate times of famine, like in World War II, where was it? Was it Yugoslavia? No, it was on the Russian border, Russia, and then it wasn't Ukraine, it was somewhere else. Or maybe it was Ukraine. But uh there's a serial killer called he was the oh, far out. Where's all my serial killer knowledge gone? The Rostov Ripper? What's his name again? I cannot remember it. Andre Chikatilo. There you go. Got it. Andre Chikatilo had cannibalistic in intense. I'm not sure. I think it might have been Ukraine, but he mainly lived in Russia and he was a communist, and his communist ties, because they were sus in Russia, kept him free for a long, long time to kill. Yeah, so Chikatilo apparently was a young man during World War II, and there's like this mythical story that they killed and ate the brother, and that's how the brother died in the early days. But they talk about this famine that was really, really like going off, and like there was no dogs in the neighborhood, there was no pets because that's how bad the famine was. Anyway, people get desperate in desperate times, is what I'm saying. Hello, Demi. I'm gonna guess it's Val. I got a pretty good educated guess on that one. Yeah. So we're gonna have a look at the project 2025. Hey, August. Uh, and this one is called Working with the Media. Given how, like, this is a really interesting take, really, because of how much they don't believe the media. This side of the spectrum of politics, and like the fake news. uh like I've always been aware of news bias. I used to teach, like, I've been an English teacher in my time, and it's media literacy, and we would teach people, hey, Alexis, Artemis Green Howard one. um and I would do like examples of like, this is a story told from one side of perspective, and here's another side, like, let's tell this same story two different ways, and things like that. So yeah, it's interesting how much fake news is taken over. uh and even our friend Bethany, she was even saying, like, the media will do this, and they'll run with something, and I'm like, yeah, you guys too. Okay. Fox News, that's what they do. Sometimes I think it's really irresponsible, the way that they report things, and it is based on this fear, uh, and making people afraid that they're going to be like home invaded. There's this progressive progressive um YouTube channel network, um and they're called the Young Turks, and they have traditionally been left wing, and they've recently sort of like drifted towards the center, and also now pushing blatantly right wing talking points. Like, one of the people in there, she was saying that people are getting visas and they're becoming criminal tourists, flying into LA, robbing people, like, while they're on a visa. They've applied for a visa and then going back. And she called them criminal tourists. I'm like, that is such a right wing talking point. It could come from any right wing, like Tim Pool or Dave Rubin or any of those, like the Daily Wire could tell that story, and that isn't meant to be a left wing slash centrist progressive point of view. So it's interesting because there was also a bunch of other people who we found last week were uh, being paid by Russian money to uh, crap on Ukraine. So yeah, it's been really interesting. Demi, no, they didn't provide any proof except to say that the mayor of maybe LA or one of the suburbs of LA has made this claim. And it was within the context, mind you, of talking about gun violence and saying that that's why people should have guns, because people are coming to rob them. So you need guns to protect yourself. It's from the outside looking in, I know that I'm talking to people who maybe don't mind, like, I just cannot understand gun culture. Can't understand it. It doesn't I cannot understand it. I don't think, like, maybe I've shot a gun, maybe I've touched a gun once. Very long time ago. Never thought about it. I'll protect myself with me. I'll use whatever I've got. This is pretty heavy. It's a rolling pin for polymer clay. Pretty heavy. Okay. I'll fight. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Uh, it's just it sounds so dangerous to be waiting with a gun to shoot an intruder. Like, would what? 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 Um, I've never been much for security because I think that if somebody wants to break in, they will break in. And also, I'm not much of one for possessions. I think that I'll go, oh, damn it, someone stole something. Well, that's really annoying. I'm going to have to go buy a new one. Like, possessions are fleeting. I know that's a John Lennon, or maybe John Lennon didn't originate it, but I've heard John Lennon say it. Possessions are fleeting. Yeah, I think maybe I'm just a little bit of a socialist. Share my stuff. That's why, like, students, I'm very generous. Well, I have been very generous in the past with loaning art supplies and letting kids use my art supplies because, like, how do you find stuff like that you like to do? Like what would how would I find out that I enjoy doing watercolors and I've just got the shitty ones from the school? Like, am I gonna let somebody use my really nice watercolors to show them, like, this is what a nice watercolors, and letting them use it so that they can experience, like, really good quality supplies and spark their interest in it, for example. And if they break something of mine, I always say, don't hide it from me. That's going to make me annoyed. Just tell me. It's just a thing. It, like, it's not a big deal if you just say, Miss, like, oh, this thing broke that you let me borrow. I'm not going to get angry at you unless you, like, broke it over your knee or whatever. Like, it's just really silly. So that's a different story. But I'm just saying, like, I'm pretty generous with what I do. Although haven't decorated for Halloween, which I usually would at school, for a long time because people steal and break stuff. So it's not going so well in the last couple of years. Yes, Demi, it is dangerous to just be always waiting for a gun. Yeah. And just being in that constant state of fear. That's why Rutro, Rachel, solidarity, sister, because I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you go to work with the risk of being shot at every day. Anyway, 15 minutes in, let's get to some reactions. Now we are, just FYI, we are doing a special Friday the 13th stream. We're going to have our funeral for some MLMs that have dearly departed. And yeah, that's right. Clown Town, constant state of fear is very American right now. Yeah. And that's why, like, oh, that's right. Yeah, you can't wear your light up shoes because it'll draw attention. Oh, and yeah, the empathy, absolutely. I was talking with my therapist on Monday, and it'd been well since we'd chatted, because you can get free 10 free sessions in Australia with the therapist. And yeah, like I had 6, and then you have to go and get like an extension, and I just had like lost the paperwork anyway. And we had a really long conversation about empathy, and that's what is the difference between, like how things are at the moment. And that's on a small sort of point of view, like with my personal things, and then also as a society. As much as all of the hope and joy and support that the Harris and Walls campaign is generating, I wish it could go to Gaza and Palestine, and they could care when an American citizen is assassinated by Israel, and they allow Israel to investigate themselves. And surprise, surprise, we didn't mean it. Sorry, accident there. It's shitty, and she sucks. But and Biden sucks more. But it is a little bit nicer just to feel that little bit of hopefulness, and like that there may be change in the future. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. And that's something that we have to make her accountable for. Make the Democrats accountable for that thing that they're promising. So yeah. Okay. So Project 2025 is it's called the Mandate for Leadership, I think. Is that what it is? And basically it is what the Heritage Foundation, which is a mix of a whole bunch of other foundations and very conservative outlets that are giving a plan for Donald Trump for a conservative president. That's what they're saying. But they know it's Donald Trump. Who else could it be? He's their nominee. And it's basically for all the administration's political appointees to be ready on day one. And these videos are training videos, supposedly, but I just don't understand how this is going to train you for anything except joining further indoctrination in the cult of Trump. So he already did about 60 something percent of the recommendations from the Heritage Foundation in his first what do they call it? First administration, and including the appointment of the conservative Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe. All right. Oh, this is a bit different. Uh, is this what I want? Yeah. Okay. I haven't. This is a little bit different because I'm using a different. What's it called? Browser. Yeah. We might go for that. Hang on. Let's have a look at this. Oh, let's. Oh. Okay, so this is on. The address is in the. Yeah. Okay, we'll do this one. The address is in the description, I think, and ProPublica is just like a news sort of site, and they have put these on for people to watch, and they haven't been edited or anything. Let me know how the sound goes because it's a new browser. Let me. Oh, what did I just do then? Yeah, we'll see how the sound goes, and if it echoes or anything like that, let me know. There's no sound yet. This dude looks wild as well. That's the big that what yeah. Why do we have such a big cross? What's with the big cross? That's what I'd like to know. It looks almost like the like Orthodox Greek, the Orthodox Russian, that very, very Orthodox Christian. Interesting. Did we hear the sound, PS? Let me know. Oh, you didn't miss much, Alexis. It was, yeah. I'm just gonna fast forward this because it's the same thing. And in this, okay, I can turn it up. In this intro thing, okay, bye. They have what's his Biden tripping up the stairs of his plane, and I don't think they've got Obama in it. So he is a priest. How interesting. Okay, where are we going? Where does this end? Okay, there we go. They'll go on and on and on and on about the president's agenda. Also, uh, I don't know about that. Like, they have to also like toe the line of what Trump wants them to say as well. Like, have you seen any of Lara Trump? I think they pronounce it Lara. Lara is how I pronounce it, whatever that is. Well, first of all, yeah, I know. Like, we are not a theocracy. Yeah. And it's just bizarre that they did it with Trump in the first place because he's not even a Christian. He doesn't believe in anything except he worships himself and money. Oh, and his ego, which is all one, I suppose. Lara Trump, have you seen her sing, first of all? Because, girl, uh, auto tune is. Yeah, auto tune can't even help her. It's bad. It's bad. Uh, After Trump put that Truth Social post about how blowjobs changed, or affected these people, affected Hillary and Kamala differently, which was, very misogynistic and insulting of both women, and it was a shitty thing to do. She was asked on CNN, like, what do you think of do you think that's appropriate? And Lara Trump just went, I haven't talked to the president about that, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's so shit. Um, yeah, I believe that everyone should have their own opinion and all that, but in the position of power, I don't find it unethical to influence those who look up to these people. Yeah, absolutely.
And you'll notice time and time again, for those that pursue men, they frankly lose themselves because they're thinking that. So going into a conservative and big state into what you were getting into. The first thing is, are you getting into it because you're looking to build your family from a man, or to set yourself up for a great career after the fact? If you're going into a conservative administration, honestly, then that is simply the nature of politics. If you're going to a liberal administration, after you finish, there's the big hands, the Fortune 500 company jobs, the big lobbying jobs, the big spokesperson jobs. That really doesn't exist for a lot of those who work in a conservative administration.
That's wild. That's Yeah. Sorry, August. That was you did say it right the first time. Um, that is wild. There's literally, like, I was just talking about it, a Russian, like, group paid conservative influencers like $5 million amongst them. Tim Pool was getting 100 grand, $100,000 a week for a show that he already does because he's already extreme. Like, come on. There's way more money on the right. There's way more money on the right. There's a lot of competition on the left and, in on the Democrat side. And don't tell me that they get into Fortune 500 companies. That is, come on. Wow, I'm blown away.
And the reason I bring this up is because oftentimes when communications and working with the media goes wrong, it's because folks are trying to audition for these jobs throughout their entire time. Which brings me to one of my important points, which is I want to get into public service.
Also, like, think about who was Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Like, she was Trump's press secretary or whatever, like she was facing the media every day and all that sort of stuff. And now she's, I think, is she some sort of politician, governor, something like that? And Scaramouche, like he's on CNN at the moment, or he's helping out anyway. A lot of money is poured into the right because part of their campaign is not to tax corporations or wealthy people. Yep. Yeah, I get what you mean. That's why the economists club, whatever, the smartest economic minds in New York were at an event with Trump the other week, where he said, what is childcare speech word, which is childcare is childcare. And they clapped after he said what he said. And also, he keeps talking about how he's not taxing people and how he's going to impose tariffs. Guess who pays the tariffs? The American people pay the tariffs. Yeah, it's just he doesn't understand how it works, and he thinks tariff sounds better than tax. It's a tax.
So the nature of is we're there to serve the American public. You're there to serve the place to push the elected. If you don't ready, you get one and you get beat. So the woman
You're there to serve the and uphold the Constitution.
mentality of to make a difference or to buy something, promising it's very nostalgic, but also it's very that's what people are in. If you get that and you're willing to go into the public, now you're going to and really you see as you're going to know the next job policies, it's working in a Republican administration, you're really going to be better. Because every time you talk with the media, they're going to be dedicated to the employees. What is my job? To the public, you're not going to be seeking their approval, and you're going to try to focus on implementing the president's agenda. Get promoted potentially the American people. Oftentimes when you're communicating with the people, you can feel this presence by the city media to tell them what they want to hear, rather than what the people wanted for the president to enact.
I'd agree with that. Like, as in, I think it is transparent when they have people who are clearly trying to sell a book or whatever. Uh, yeah, but I don't think that they are there to implement the president's, like, that's what they want from Project 2025. They want a bunch of people who are loyal to Donald Trump, but yeah. Okay.
Also, oftentimes individuals who look into organic communications, public affairs, and it's very people who are in front of the camera as their aims. And they think that this is something that they're going to work towards, whether it's White House press secretary or other jobs regularly on TV for their message. Most people who are working with the media don't learn people do this or even presidential communities that are working in communications. You're not going to be in front of the camera. And it's important to use because you're going to be working on things very differently. You're going to be working to get processes, and you're not going to be working in the media directly to get your name in something. The best people who work in communications in a government administration, oftentimes they're the people that are doing the briefing books for the White House press secretary, and doing briefing books for cabinet secretaries, or even undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, or just
Oh, that's great, Demi. I think that there are a bunch of people who are looking outside themselves, you know. He said he was a priest before August, so I'm not sure. Like, I believe that he is probably he is what he says he is, but it's interesting that he seems to have a business as well as, like, it seems like he's a promoter of some sort. It's weird. Uh, I would guess that if you are working, I don't know. Are there, do you think that there would be many people, we can look him up. I can't remember what his name was though. Can look him up on the, uh, hang on, where were we? If we're at 6:42, let me have a look at his little title thing here. Let's go to the transcript. All right, transcript. Do you think that there's anyone in Trump land who isn't getting involved because they don't want a little bit of that fame, you know, like that aren't sort of in it to, I don't know, do you know what I mean? Like get a little bit of notoriety. Like I'm with Trump, you know. Okay, so he is Alexei Walter. During the Trump, he was the Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security and spokesman of the Department of Justice previous to that. He worked on Capitol Hill at the Republican Study Committee. Currently, he's the co-founder of Athos, a communications and literary agency, and he's an Eastern Catholic priest where he serves his parish in Lansing, Michigan. That's interesting. We can have a little bit, like, a bit of a look. Oh, what's the OMG for? I'm excited, but so what is his name again? Alexei Walter, I think what it was. Priest. We'll go priest. Alexei. Oh God, is this him? Oh, it's on Facebook. Says somebody's been indicted. Hang on, where's my window? Sorry. I think he is a priest. Alexei. I think he is. Hang on. Where does he say his name? Introduction. Does his name come up? Because I want to spell it correctly. Oh, hang on. Alexei. Oh. Oh, now we have to go. Sorry, everyone. Sorry. I just want to see how to spell his name. Oh, no wonder it was the wrong name because they haven't fixed the
right.
Waltonist. That is a really unusual name. Okay. What's his name? porn. Okay. School of Theology. Father. He's on X, everybody. That's good. Stop looking. Right. Yeah. Can we just say they're not pro-life, they're pro-birth. Because once they actually yep, exactly. Um once the baby's born, they don't really want to know anything about it, and they don't really care, and they don't want to provide lunches for them, and you know, that's really interesting. Uh okay, so it does look like he is a Russian Byzantine Catholic Esquire. There's a article on Esquire. Do do do. I can't be bothered to read the whole thing. LinkedIn, we can have a look at his LinkedIn, hey? Maybe he wasn't always, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, maybe he didn't always look like this. I'll show you what is on his LinkedIn. How do I share this page? I'm gonna change my page. Uh, do do do. Oh, working with the media. I don't think I can share it. Sorry. Um, maybe I'll open it up in, for some reason it doesn't want to share doesn't want to share something in Firefox, but it'll let me share it in the Google, I think. Uh-oh. What's happening? Okay. Ooh. Didn't like that. I don't like that. Why can't I show him? I want to share this. Oh, maybe you can do. I'll just do screen 2. Okay. There he is. See, he's grown his hair. He doesn't look as like extreme in this one. You know, he looks like a little bit more put together, if you know what I mean. Uh, with roles in the Department of Justice, U.S. House of Reps, and Department of Homeland Security, Alexei is communications strategist with experience driving the headlines at every media outlet. During his time serving as Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security, he served as Chief Crisis Communications Official for the U.S. government, shepherding the federal response to countless high-profile news cycles. He also serves on the board of several nonprofits. What did I do? And Alexei, there will be for misgendering. Tish, you have your pronoun. Yeah, I know. I can't help but think also that his current, like, what he looks like is also quite on purpose. Do you know what I mean? Like, he is meaning to look like that. It doesn't see. Oh, look, Senior Communications Manager at the Heritage Foundation. What a surprise. I think he's just a Catholic priest because Byzantine Catholic Seminary of Saints Cyril and Methodius, Bachelor of Arts. Ugh, that's a bachelor of bullshit. How do I know? I got one. I do not have a BA of political science and philosophy, but I do have a minor in history. So, oh shit, I've got uni to actually do. Because I am studying to be a psychologist. I don't know if I will be a psychologist, but yeah, maybe. I'm thinking that it could be a little bit more of a like it does seem to be a little bit more extreme when he looks like that. Because, like I said, he looks like he's an Orthodox priest. Most Catholic priests don't look like that. Okay, we're gonna. I worked in a Catholic school. Yeah, I really liked it. I liked um I like actually going to Catholic church because it's like theater to me. Like there's words and there's like pageantry and yeah, it's good. How do I get rid of that? Oh, okay. What the hell? um, what's happening? Why? That's what I want. Okay, hang on. Now I can't get back to my window. Sorry, everyone. Oh yeah, we really want to go back to like. Okay, I think we're back. All right. Sorry. I'm sorry, I'm doing it in a different browser, so it's a little bit weird. Okay, we were up to 6 minutes and something. So I think he's legit. It's just weird. Yeah, yeah. See, I love the aesthetic too. I've got that. Can you see it behind me? Where is she? It says worship me. I love it. I love all the Catholic like aesthetic. Oh yeah. It was so bizarre. My nana, before she passed away, she went back to the Catholic Church and she was in an orphanage. The nuns took her baby, got pregnant when she was like 14. Sorry, trigger warning, gonna talk about religious manipulation and trauma and birth trauma. But she got pregnant when she was like 14 and she was one of those ones that like signed away her baby like in a days where the nuns come and say, hey, would you like your baby to be adopted? And anyway, yeah, she was really poorly treated by the Catholic Church, but then in her old age went back to them. It was very strange. And we ended up finding my nana's first child, and we actually lived in the same street as her. It was just bananas. Um, and yeah, so we met them like 20 plus years ago now when I was a kid. So no, 40 plus years ago. So yeah. Anyway, let's get back to it.
It's important to keep in mind that most dogs are all equally fluent and running in a bunch of communities somewhere. The person in front of the camera relies on numerous people who are working behind the camera. And when the person can negotiate bookings, negotiating print interviews. That is not necessary to get into the administration and to communicate effectively. Whenever people are in these roles, you have to get this type of complex where it's only acting behind camera, then but oftentimes this is misguided because both of these jobs are incredibly important. And also, just the way the numbers work in the jobs work, the number of in front of camera jobs is very, very few and far between. Odds are, you have these positions. Does it mean that you failed? No, certainly not. Most of these positions actually happens behind the scenes. And as long as you understand that, that's going to set you up for good professional development, but also it will help you do your job better. So you're not trying to do another job, but you're trying to do the job that is equating. On the matter of mentality and personal development, it is also very important to keep in mind your credibility. When you're in an administration, oftentimes you can be tempted with fudging some numbers or getting into politics in town or getting into some sort of fight with the media. But it's important to keep in mind that your credibility is very, very important. That is one thing that you go into an administration with that you really need to lead with in order.
I'm sorry, what? Credibility in a Trump administration? Credibility. Right. So you can't fudge the truth. He said numbers, but like any sort of truth. Like saying that you have the biggest numbers of any inauguration, even though that's patently not true. Ah, yes, absolutely, Alexis. I think she knew that she was alive. I don't think they told her that she had passed away, but yeah, uh, like it definitely screwed a lot of people up along the way because it's just so bizarre. Like you couldn't have a baby out of wedlock, heaven forbid. And she probably got pregnant in the first place because she didn't understand anything about sex and contraception and things like that because of growing up in an orphanage where the nuns said, don't do it. Yes. Well, Demi, also remember what dear Bethany and Katie said? If you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes true. I'm gonna press play and I'm gonna get some. I need some water, and I'm gonna add liquid IV to that water. But I need some water, and so Minnie's gonna take over. All right.
One thing to do is simply doing your homework. Oftentimes, people in the communications and media industry, the public affairs, their aim is simply go first. People go for things to the rest of the administration. So, in terms of prestige in the administration, sometimes people will think, we have the lawyers doing the real work, the regulators, the people who are writing policy, the law enforcement, they're doing the real work. And then very often the communications people who are just sending out the press releases and they're calling it where they're kind of icing on the cake, but they're not really trying to do operations. Where oftentimes working with these people, you can accept that mentality. And that's kind of where things go wrong in the first place. Where they view their job as communicators a little transitory. They're just going to be distributors of press releases, or they'll just be an invoker, or just a speechwriter. And I think the hard way to the subject matter experts. If you're relying on people who are policy already to set the messaging, set the strategy, and to dictate what your press releases are and how you're going to communicate with the media, ultimately they aren't needed. not just the distributor. But successful communicators, they don't accept that. Instead, they never become subject matter experts themselves. Are you to be as proficient in the weeds as someone who is a direct operator, able to get a press release or ICE or border patrol or a U.S. Attorney's Office, they were in charge of documents. Are you going to be as in the weeds on particular forms and outlets work? The answer is no. But you do need to understand those things are so that when a reporter comes, you can also know how to find it. And you don't need to so whenever you talk to media, you and your views become a subject to media. And also, I guess you're having a system where you're just where you just send too many things. If you generally need the speakers, brand the target audience, the brand audience is because it's when the things that and then you can see the areas.
Hi, Lisa. Interesting. Do you think though that like there's a time and place, like you wouldn't be the expert all the time and you just are a booker, yeah, interesting. Best communicators in a presidential administration are often unnamed. Are they? uh Credibility, that's the most ridiculous one. Yeah. And Minnie failed at staying on camera, by the way. Terrible. She's fired.
Another whenever you position like this, where you work with people and you also have the ability to implement the agenda of the president. Oftentimes, when people are in these positions, they'll talk about appointees almost as eliminating the system that's working effectively without. But actually, the opposite is without appointees, the government has no real ways to implement the will of the president. That's a bureaucracy as running things rather than the president himself. So when you're in these positions, you do have certain duties that you should be fulfilling. The first is you need to focus on there is functions like we have about employees, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's regulatory enforcement, and simply informing the public of the these routine acts is one of my duties as when it works at BGM. The second is the agenda. And this simply put is what makes us where the people have a government that works for them. And at this point, largely it is system of career bureaucrats. And the way that is the American people individuals to control this government. The career officials are able to arguably keep but the political appointees are there to be a direct role of the people in implementing the president's agenda.
I don't think that's accurate of the career employees. They're also there to do that. And the president isn't the only person who decides what is the will of the people. You guys have a Senate and what's the other one? Senate and House of Representatives. Is that right? Is that right? Please tell me. And you have governors and you have senators and you have SCOTUS and you have there are so many aspects to government that it is not just the will of the president. And and the president's agenda. There is a lot at play within those structures.
And when positions, particularly when you communicate with the media, it is important to let them know this thing that you want the president to do, they are doing it. When you are able to listen to those answers from officials, whether they're in the media or whether they're career officials, that really affects that message. I'm not talking about me giving when you're doing this action and you're directly saying, vote for this candidate. But oftentimes they have trouble discerning the line where, oh, the president can't communicate directly, and therefore, if he talks about it, or you as a political appointee are talking about the president's promises as fulfilling it, all of a sudden it's political and you cannot do it. But rather, you have to have their
The dogs are barking, so I'm just going to put it on mute and press play and see what they're barking at. It's home time. I live next to a school, so I imagine they're barking at the parents who are picking up their children. Okay. I'm going to put it on mute and press play.
content that they were talking about how they're implementing the president's agenda.
Oh, sorry. Is it not going through? Let me know. Let me have a look. Um, hang on. Doo-doo-doo. Well, I'll just have a look at what's happening. Audio import. What's happening? Microphone. Can you hear me at the moment? Hello. No? What the hell? Oh, okay, maybe you can. Little mic. Yeah, okay. Doo-doo. Okay. I'll try again and let me know.
And then they had career bureaucrats who were unelected and unaccountable to the American public, then say this content is or is not acceptable to communicate to the American public. So if you're ever in one of these positions, I recommend, number one, you have the best framework and mentality for what your value add is to constitutional government, but also understand that is not normal. You should be talking with lawyers, particularly politically appointed lawyers,
Okay.
and ask them, is this legal? There's also situations which are illegal, where political individuals will be reporting to career officials, and that is not supposed to be happening. If you ever find yourself in one of these positions, you should be speaking with the general counsel at your agency or other lawyers, because this cuts directly against constitutional Republican government.
I didn't really understand that. Implement the president's agenda, that's what makes us a republic. Well, like I said, the career appointees, like the career political whatevers, they are also there at the will of the people. Like, it's not political work to discuss what the president campaigned on. Political appointees have the power to decide what should be communicated to the public, not career government officials. You got it? Did you see? The "not" is in really big letters. Political appointees should not be reporting to career government officials. Well, I mean, I think it depends on what you're. If this is what they're telling people, a political appointee should not be reporting to a career government official. It depends on your rank, wouldn't it? That wouldn't be just a blanket rule. Weird. Hmm. So would the when he's talking about the lawyers as well, would the lawyers be considering what is posted based on not getting into legal issues, right? So if it was something that they campaigned on, for example, you know, banning abortion completely, they might not want to say that outright, or that, you know, like they might not want to say that as a statement because it violates a constitution, like, you know, a human right to for this or that. Do you know what I mean? Like it could be the lawyers looking out for them. That's just a guess, though, on my behalf.
Next, I want to talk to you about how the media works. You may think I work with the media all the time already, or I watch the news all the time. I know how they work. But perhaps there's some insights I have in working with them in the way I have that can help you do your job a little better. The first place to start is understanding the media and what their interests are. So largely you can put the media into two categories. There's the legacy, what many people will consider the traditional media. That consists of cable news channels, the legacy places like the New York Times, Washington Post, as well as the networks, ABC, CBS, NBC. The second category is what many would consider the more political or partisan media, which would include outlets that most of you probably read, like The Federalist, The Daily Caller, The Washington Free Beacon, The Daily Signal. Oftentimes people will get into political positions. And
What? I didn't recognize any of those things. The Daily Caller, the Daily Beacon. Why are they all daily? And the only thing that I can think of that starts with daily is the Daily Wire. Weird that he didn't mention like Fox or, you know, like because I wouldn't call the Daily Wire or like, you know, Rumble. They wouldn't be legacy media, you know.
and then they have this mentality that I mentioned before, this inferiority complex, where
But I would also argue that there's also independent journalists who exist on like YouTube and Rumble and X and, you know, like Where else? Rumble, Daily Wire has their own thing. PragerU, maybe. Like, yeah.
They crave the mainstream media's attention. They crave their approval. And they act like the conservative media is some sort of second tier media, where this whole mentality, frankly, betrays the trust of the American people. The American people read all kinds of outlets, and also different kinds of Americans read different kinds of outlets. If I'm a conservative, odds are I'm not reading the Washington Post or New York Times.
Really? Because the Times is kind of conservative now. They've been pretty much, well, like, sympathizing with Trump and criticizing Kamala, which as we know, I've got criticisms of her as well. Um, Partisan media. Yeah, interesting. Interesting. And also, the Washington Post is, I think, uh, what's his name? The dude who owns Amazon. Phil? No, that's not his name. God damn it, why can't I think of his name? The billionaire who runs Amazon. Why can't I think of his name? Because he's not important. He sucks. Yeah, that's right. Um, Phil. Why do I keep on thinking of Phil? His name is not Phil. It's Amazon. Jeff Bezos. Thank you. Sorry. My brain was like blank. Jeff Bezos, I think he owns the Washington Post. There are some good journalists who work at Washington Post, but it's like any billionaire, it's gonna be trying to protect their bottom line. How could they not put Fox on that?
The first place to start is understanding what each media venue can bring to the table. With the legacy media, it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like most of them, their premise for making money is simply getting eyeballs on their content so they can sell ads. And the way they often do this is by creating salacious content. But also, in the modern era, they appeal to a certain type of political leaning.
Could they say that uh people are eating dogs and cats in, where is it? Ohio? Could they say that? Huh? And that originated. I found the original thing was about a goose getting killed, right? From a white supremacist who went to a meeting complaining about Haitians. So, and apparently on 4chan as well. So all of that crap that they have been going on about is Nazi shit. Like, it's so racist. So racist. And they're just like, yay! Do you know how many white people are so excited that racism can be, is publicly acceptable? It's not, but they're emboldened at the moment. Uh, you know, I cannot believe that Matt Walsh has he called it a comedy, but it's called Am I Racist? And it's just him being a dick to people with a man bun, thinking that he's fitting in as a liberal. Um, he's so obnoxiously rude. Like, I don't. I think him and Crowder, Matt Walsh and Crowder, are just the worst. But Crowder's They like Crowder is so openly racist, and Matt Walsh also pretty openly racist, but also thinks that 16-year-old girls are fine for marriage. So it's really hard to pick who's worse. You know, if they were to fight each other, I hope they both lose. You know.
So if you ask most people, it's pretty clear that most mainstream
Bye,
media outlets
Alexis.
are to the left.
Thanks for dropping in.
Remember how I talked about having some sort of self-ownership before you go into serve in an administration? This is where it becomes important. Because if you are working with a New York Times reporter who covers your beat or whatever you're responsible for communicating to the American public, if you are in a position where you crave their approval, you're going to mess up. You're going to do something wrong. If the New York Times is writing a glowing profile on you, the person who's supposed to be behind the scenes, you're doing something wrong. Not only because you're frankly getting a little outside of your lane, but also because they are certainly to the left. And if you're serving a conservative administration, you should not be getting glowing reviews from the left. Oftentimes, people will satisfy trying to build relationships with these legacy outlets, and they will try to get their approval by leaking. Most of the time, if you're a reporter at the New York Times or Washington Post, they want leaks. That's how they drive that salacious news that gets clicks. I can guarantee you they are not working with you if you're in a conservative administration to implement the president's agenda. Actually, it's the contrary. They want leaks to stymie any type of conservative administration agenda. So,
It's interesting because there's already been leaks from like Trump people to the media with, you know, like how they think that the campaign is going at the moment, you know, that a lot of you have a look at the people who are around him. They are trying to make sure they have a career after Trump, so they're not being as extreme as they normally would. Like someone like Nikki Haley, all right? She's got a very good chance of having a good career post Trump. So she is being a little bit critical of him. And I think Mitt Romney was a little bit critical of him. Yeah, just looking at, and even, you know, I've heard that, you know, some people behind the scenes are, you know, making, you know, doing the rounds and asking and making sure that there's something for them when after, you know, after the November vote.
this is important to keep in mind because whenever you're in a position of trust for the public, there are these many opportunities to leak information to the press, where almost every time it is not in your interest. But the thing that they always try to dangle in front of you is, oh, you're going to get that lunch meeting or that coffee meeting with this legacy outlet, and they're going to say how helpful you were. It's not that helpful to you. It's not that helpful to the president's administration. And they're trying to get you to trade in your access and your promise to implement the president's agenda so that they can get their next headline. And the second category is the conservative media outlets. In working with conservative media outlets, it's important to understand their role in this whole system. The American people who vote for a conservative presidential administration, they're not reading the New York Times. They're not reading the Washington Post. Actually, to the contrary, if those outlets publish something,
They're not reading. They're not very well read. Let's just say that, shall we? That's why they aren't reading the Washington Post and the New York Times. They're watching television. That's what they're doing. They're watching Fox and Newsmax and Daily Wire and Rumble because they have confirmation bias, and they can see their values being exposed, by people who look like them.
Going to assume it's false. So the only way to reach them with any voice of credibility is through working with conservative media outlets. For many of these people, if it's not in these conservative outlets, it didn't happen or it's not true. And that's simply the result of the past decades where legacy media have attacked conservatives and then shown that they're lying or reporting something as false. So the conservative media can bring a certain credibility to the table, but also they can bring a reach that you can't have otherwise. So
What? Are you fucking kidding? And I know that a lot of Americans, yeah, exactly. A lot of Americans don't like Al Jazeera, but do you know that Al Jazeera is very, like, fair? Like, because it's called Al Jazeera, a lot of Americans don't think that it's bipartisan or anything like that. Our government-run channel, the ABC, used to be very, like, pretty reliable. They've gone a little bit conservative of late, which is disappointing because they always had a lot of credibility with what they would report. And, like, they're currently in litigation because they fired a correspondent who was pro-Palestine, and she's actually suing them for wrongful dismissal. And I think they've gone through their first lot for mediation, and I think she's going to win. Yeah, interesting. We also have another one called SVS, which is pretty. They use a lot of Al Jazeera as well. There are media outlets that are telling the truth. I don't know how many in America, but they're out there. All right. It's not just like there's no conservative media. You can't watch any other thing else other than conservative media. I think that's very ignorant and incorrect.
in any type of communication strategy, they should be a large part so that you can effectively communicate with the American people who put you in the position that you could be holding. And when you're working with the media, it's important to keep in mind standards of what you're trying to accomplish. If I'm a legacy media outlet, I'm not going to be writing about how some conservative policy, whether it's taxes, energy reform, religious liberty, I'm not going to be writing, if I'm working at one of these legacy outlets, about how whatever the president did is so great for the American people. They're not going to be doing it. It's just not in their interest. The reporters don't politically align that way. Even more so, their editors do not align that way. And they don't want to make a conservative administration look like they're effective in doing their job. So what do you want to get from that?
I think that like, if there was something that was going to benefit people, they'd be okay with reporting it, like, I think after COVID, a lot of people sort of, like, tried to be a little bit more supportive of each other in the media. Like, we're in this together, until then everybody became insane anti-vax conspiracy fools. But, yeah, this sounds a little conspiratorial as well,
One method
Oh,
is sometimes people just write the
also, the conservative and right-wing media also answer to the mighty dollar. Okay.
these outlets off wholesale. Where that strategy sometimes has its merits, but more often than not, the American people do deserve to know what's happening. And they read these outlets. So, what is the value that these outlets can bring to the table? Simply put, they can factually cover what is occurring. So, should you be fighting with them on how everything the president did is really great? You should certainly be having that fight, but odds are they're not going to write a glowing piece. But can they factually capture everything that's happening and any data that you can bring to support on how it's good for the American people? That's something you should certainly be fighting for. But also, you shouldn't be getting into their game where you're looking at everything from their worldview, where what the American people elected the president to do is bad. You should never give up that fight, but also, you don't need to waste your time if you're not going to convince them.
Ooh. Unfortunately, some communicators will prioritize building relationships with legacy outlets and try to get their approval by leaking. Legacy outlets will try to convince you to trade in your access and your promise to implement the president's agenda so they can get their next headline. Don't let legacy media outlets convince you that conservative media is second-tier media. The American people read all kinds of outlets. That's so funny that he's glommed on to reading when I don't think that well, in the debate, I think that Donald Trump told one truth and many, many lies. I believe him when he said he has not read Project 2025. 900 pages of policy documents. I'm interested in the FTC. I want to know what's going to happen to MLMs and the FTC. And it was so boring. I was like, oh, kill me. So I believe Donald Trump has not read Project 2025. Does he know about it? Yes, he does.
And the second category is the conservative media outlets. Sometimes they need a little more help, where here is how it ties in with the president's that your readers largely support. Sometimes this takes some extra background calls. Sometimes this takes giving them some scoops so that they can get ahead of the coverage.
This sounds a little suspicious. What do you mean by that? Sometimes they can get ahead of the scoop. And there's a story that fits. I'm very suspicious.
It's also important to keep in mind the resource disparity. If I'm a legacy media outlet, I have hundreds or sometimes even thousands of reporters that I can throw on beats upon beats. For example, Bloomberg, they have hundreds of reporters that will write up nearly every single legal filing of note, every single regulation of note. And they basically have the resources to cover almost everything of substance coming out of an administration, especially if it's going to make someone money. Whereas if I'm a conservative outlet, oftentimes they're running on a scale that is smaller. They don't have the sheer number of reporters that are able to cover every microbeat. So sometimes if you're going to
It's so funny that he said, that they are not they're smaller outlets and so on and so on, when the money is in the right wing and conservative media. And the way that the media grades on a scale of how they cover Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and even comparing Donald Trump to Joe Biden, post debate, why isn't anyone discussing why grandpa is raving about dogs being eaten because he saw it on television. You know, like when Joe Biden, he didn't even say anything outrageous like that, but he lost his place and he was trying to call up too many different he had too many points of view in his head. He talked about immigration when he was supposed to be talking about abortion, and like it was a freaking mess. But you're not having the same conversation about Trump, where he was absolutely unhinged. And I saw this on the Majority Report where, like he didn't even wait. It was the first quarter of, like 15 minutes where he was talking about the cats and the dogs being eaten, and it wasn't even about. I think she was talking about immigration. Oh no, immigration is kind of like tangentially related to that point of view. But yeah, the way if she had have, if someone had have said to her, "Oh, this point is going to make him repeat the lie about the eating of the dogs," you would not have said that he would have repeated that. And I cannot believe that he got baited into it in the first, like, little bit of the video. I did see someone on Twitter going, "You effing idiots talking about the effing dogs, making that man repeat the lie in the effing debate. Thanks a lot." And that was the right-wing conservative media who put that fake story out, and then the people like Charlie Kirk and Tim Pool. I don't know if Tim Pool mentioned it. I think he's keeping a low profile after his Russian money scandal. But the Young Turks were talking about it, and uh, I think it was on Fox News. JD Vance had tweeted it, and it was just ridiculous. So yeah, it's interesting that Kamala Harris can talk sense, and they'll be critical of her, and then not as critical of Donald Trump, who made no sense at all.
Send out a press release. The Bloomberg type will pick it up, and sometimes one of these conservative outlets, they may want to cover it, but they just don't have the resources. So in order to reach the audience of the American people that support the president's agenda, sometimes you need to do a little bit of hand-holding, where you reach out to an editor beforehand, you can embargo something, and help them with their resource allocation just by simply giving them a heads up.
So it's okay for you to leak things to the conservative media, right? Which is what you said that you shouldn't do to the legacy media. Why is that? Why do you have a double standard there? Oh, really? That's so funny, Lisa. I think the Majority Report made a good point of, I think for the uninformed voter who doesn't watch as much political stuff, I think that he would have looked a lot more unhinged because they wouldn't know things like, she mentioned where he went to university, which I missed as well. The crowd sizes, the things that trigger him. I don't think, normie voters are too conscious of. I think that they are a little bit more like they're not so much aware of those sorts of things. But yeah. Oh, the funniest one was Megyn Kelly saying, "Oh, those why did they fact check him so many times and they didn't even fact check her." Megan, they fact checked the person who was telling lies. Honey, you're meant to be smart. Come on.
The last matter I want to discuss is the tactics that you have at your disposal to communicate with the American people. One of the large tools that you're going to do this with is press releases. For those of you who have served, you'll be familiar with this phenomenon. And for those of you who haven't served in a presidential administration, this is how it usually works. You go into the office, then you get a call from someone possibly deep in the organization. Hey, I have a press release that needs to go out today. And you send it out. If that's where you're at, something has gone wrong already. This gets into this mentality that I mentioned before, where the communicators just simply are distributors of information. Rather, you should be in the driving seat. You should be crafting the messaging. You should be bringing in key information on how it implements the president's agenda to make Americans' lives better. And if a press release is already drafted, it's too late. If there is a regulation or some sort of charge from law enforcement or some sort of policy change, you really need to be part of the discussion in the first place. And the reason for this is, like I mentioned before, if you are a policymaker, they can get so in the weeds that they can become disconnected from the American people. But also, they're not going to think about how to package it to the American people or how it could be received by the American people. They can just frankly get a tunnel vision, and that's the value add for communicators. You're regularly engaging with the media, you're regularly engaging with the American people through the public sentiment on social media and such, that you really can bring something to the conversation. I know how intimidating it can be when you're in an agency, say the Department of Justice. You're the only person who didn't get a law degree from an Ivy League university, and they're talking about some important regulation. I know how intimidating it can be to really offer your 2 cents, but I assure you, that's what the American people want you to do. They
You sure about that? You sure about that? Yeah, you should be a little bit like intimidated by that because, yeah, I think that is important to have people who are qualified, you know, because let's just be transparent here. They are not employing, and this is where they say, oh, DEI, we shouldn't have DEI. We should just be hiring the best person for the job. And they are implementing their own DEI, which is anybody who's loyal to Trump. That's the person they're looking for, and there is diversity and equity and inclusion in that. But yeah, it's just like if I were an Ivy League lawyer and there was some like pleb Trumper, MAGA person, oh God. Yes, I think so. August, I think that as time gets closer and they know now that they are on the ropes. They know. They're grasping at straws. So we'll see what they pull out. Because what they've pulled out in the past has been pretty scary.
want someone who is implementing the president's agenda and bringing that to fruition. So if you're ever in those positions, don't be shy. The president or the White House put you in this position to do this very thing. And also, you're reading a lot of media, and that actually is an important perspective to bring to the table. So it can be as simple as, okay, well, what is the strategy going to be in implementing this regulation? Simply sending out a press release is usually the proposal from most people who don't do communications. Usually, I'm working on a regulation if I'm a policy person. What am I going to do? Send out a press release, and then they call it a day. And then you'll get the call a few days later. Why is anyone covering my press release? Well, usually it's because it's boring. Where your job is to make sure it connects with the American people and it connects with the media. So if you're part of these policy planning discussions, you can help them craft the message from the beginning so that it's not turning around a ship at the last minute. You can make sure things largely stay on track up until the point of the press release. So once you're at the point of the press release, most of your work is done. The messaging is lined up, the way that the regulation is branded, and also the rollout. You can also factor in other things on exclusives, whether it's a broadcast exclusive with an interview with the principal, or whether it's a print exclusive. You can factor that into the rollout beyond just a press release. Because oftentimes, if there is any type of big policy change, it's because something's going to hit the Federal Register, or something's going to be out today. And calling a reporter up and saying, hey, this thing's happening in 2 hours is going to get you different coverage than I'm alerting you, here's an embargo, here's the actual regulation, here's the actual press release. It's coming in a week. That's going to generate you better coverage, but also it will improve your relationships. It will help you have credibility with reporters so that they really know you're part of the process and an insider, and they're going to work with you differently. And this gets me to another important point, which is simply to pick up the phone.
This is making me really tired. I'm like, my eyes are getting heavy because it's boring. I cannot believe you said that the press release is boring and that's why it's not being picked up. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just crap, like that dogs are being stolen and eaten, you know?
When you're working with press releases, it's very simple to just get in this email mode where everything is emailed and you communicate with reporters, everything in writing. If you look at the great communicators who get points on the board, they're talking to reporters. When a reporter reaches out about any type of regulation or anything you're doing a press release on, you become a subject matter expert and you can walk them through what it's actually going to accomplish. You're going to demonstrate to the reporter you know more than them because you've been doing your homework. And also, you know more than them because you're part of the deliberations. So as you're part of these deliberations, you can figure out what is in the interest of the American public, where you can show you're implementing the president's agenda, and you can communicate that to a reporter in the appropriate way, whether it's on background, on the record, off the record, and you can also craft the storyline in ways that you can't in writing. As you're part of all of these deliberations and forming the policy, you want to just make sure that you're part of the conversation. And one way that you can do that is simply by showing up and doing your job. So if you are given a certain portfolio at a cabinet agency, or if you're at the White House, you should be regularly talking with those who are implementing some sort of policy. You shouldn't only be seeing them when, hey, there's a press release ready to go out. You should be checking in with them every day or so. Hey, what do you have coming down the pipeline? Hey, here's a news story that we could use your help on. And when you're part of the process and you let policymakers know that by working with you, you're going to get better coverage, it's going to be more factual. Conservative media is going to be trumpeting how great this priority is and this policy is. You're going to be brought into the process earlier so you can help craft the policies, so you can help craft the messaging, so you can help craft the strategy. And that's when the calls come in and you can really do your job effectively. And that's how you break out of this mold that many communicators find themselves in, where you're just simply a person on a screen pressing send on an email that goes to everyone too late in the process.
Oh my God.
Another important tool that you'll have is background briefings. A lot of the magic that happens in communicating what a president or his administration is doing happens in ways that aren't even directly reported. These are background calls, off the record calls, and other types of briefings where you'll give out access to high ranking or sometimes mid-level officials in order to condition coverage in the long term. For mainstream outlets, you can make sure that they understand the issue better so they can be more factual. Or for conservative outlets, you're helping them understand issues so they can see how it ties in with the president's agenda and how he's implementing it. As you're doing these,
Well, shouldn't you want that for all people? How does this tie in with the agenda? And, like that's a better way of making the mainstream understand what you're doing,
background calls, they can be very helpful, but sometimes working with decision makers, they might not see the value because they're not getting a clip right away. They're not getting some glowing review or write-up. That gets back to one of the first points I made on credibility. The media needs to understand that you are a gatekeeper and that you're going to help them do their job, and you need to create an incentive structure where they want to come to you rather than go around you. So by helping them do their job better, by setting them up with important officials who are making decisions, you can help them trust you that you're in the know, but also help them come to you when they're writing a story.
I'm going to make this faster just to get it done.
You'll also be faced with many instances where, from legacy outlets, they're writing a damaging story about someone or something or some agency that you're responsible to be their spokesman. There's one tactic that I think is particularly effective in this. It doesn't hurt to just stop and take stock and say, what are the facts as you understand them? What facts can I give you that could tell you that you're wrong? And that oftentimes will take them aback because they're never.
Really? What are the facts? What are the facts? Like, what are the facts about this dog eating thing? You know? Ah, what about the fact that Donald Trump did not win the 2020 election, even though he claimed that he did? When Donald Trump talks about that in the debate, and he said J6, I'm like, you're too comfortable with that. You've even got a little nickname for him. Ugh. Like, and this is the conversation I've had with my dad as well, because he was looking like he was drifting right, but I think he's back onto the center. And he was saying that like like they can't believe that there's this felon running. And I said, well, you know why it's not written down anywhere that a felon shouldn't run? Because nowhere in any political circle of the Republicans or the Democrats or whatever would they have thought we need to write in a thing that says that a felon cannot run for president, right? Because would you ever think that a party would pick a felon to run for president? No, it's unthinkable. Like that's why he's allowed to run, because no one's ever written it down, because everybody just assumed. They would never let a felon run, a convicted felon run, Um, isn't it funny as well? He admitted that he lost the election by a whisker, and it said he was at a Moms for Liberty event, but I thought I saw it somewhere else as well. And he claimed he was sarcastic. He was not being sarcastic. And that's because there are a bunch of people, including Nick Fuentes, who is a neo-Nazi, who was railing about, like, oh, Trump admitted that he lost the election. What was January 6th for? Like that was for no reason. And so, like, I know they tried to attack Kamala about her flip-flopping, but the man has had 10 different positions on abortion. And yeah, like, and January 6th, and it's like, I don't know how any police officer or any sort of like law outlets can support him with his record of being a felon and more than likely facing more charges and punishments. But that's only if he doesn't get elected. If he gets elected, then he's just going to pardon himself for everything, which is bizarre, bizarre.
Really ask that. And also, you can ask them about how they're doing their job. You can say, okay, you're writing this story. Am I the last call that you're making? Who else have you talked to? Have you been researching this? Or ask them about how they came to the conclusion that they have. Some of the more honest reporters will tell you point blank, I haven't talked to as many people as I would have liked to, or I don't know as much as I should. And sometimes, even with these legacy outlets, you can fill in important information that they would not have otherwise, as long as they're being honest with you in their limitations. That usually shows some sort of humility that they're willing to work with you and get things right.
Interesting.
Another one of the tools that a communicator has in your toolbox that's very important is op-eds and speeches. If you're working with a cabinet official or even many of the lower ranking officials, there are a lot of speeches that these principals will give. Many times in any type of communications office, this is how it happens. You're a speechwriter, or you're in the speechwriting office, or you're someone who's just designated to write speeches. You get a calendar invite and you're told, we need a speech by this date. And then you draft it. Or sometimes the principal will draft it themselves and just send it to you to send out. Whenever principals will put something on the calendar for a speech or they draft something, sometimes they'll think of it just as a regular churn. But this is really missing many of these big opportunities for speeches and for op-eds. Think of all the speeches that were given in any presidential administration, and then think of how many that you have seen where someone sent it to you and said, oh my gosh, have you seen this speech? They said things that I've thought about it, but they've never put it like that. They were so right. These are one of these few opportunities where we can really have thought leadership. Most of what you do in communicating is contributing to the churn.
I don't think I've ever thought that about anything that Donald Trump has ever said, ever. And he's so extreme. I don't think many people like, well, I've seen him at the MAGA rally saying the thing where he said they go to schools and they have sex change operations and then they come home a few days later and they're a different sex. Wild, just absolutely wild. And there's people going, yes, that's happening. Bitch, you can't even go to the hospital like that to get something you want done, like that's so ridiculous,
This is the daily breaking news of some regulation or policy change or some military conflict or crisis. But speech writing is the ability to set trends in the long run, to pave an intellectual framework they can go down as you're implementing the president's agenda. And if you remember this, you can really take speeches and op-eds and turn them into what they should be. Opportunities to tell Americans how you're improving their lives, and also to sell a vision. Oftentimes, we have this vision setting during presidential campaigns, and then it kind of peters out once the government power is taken by a presidential candidate. And
Imagine that. It peters out, does it? Does it? Imagine that. Perhaps you have somebody who is obsessed with money and they trade secrets and land and deals, and maybe they ask that was the other thing too. He said something about going to Europe and saying you have to pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. It was very confusing. I just don't think he understands how things work, and he has so many people who will go in and rescue him and interpret what he said to make it seem like he's making sense. And the media has contributed to that as well. So it's just strange that they have been so critical of the media, you know. There's definitely a lot of misogyny in that at the moment, especially with Kamala being the vice president, being the presidential nominee. Anyway, yeah, he basically said to Ukraine, we're going to give you, we're going to fund you, but you have to start an investigation into Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. Even though Kushner, the son-in-law, was doing deals for him in Iran, and there's a lot of things that I didn't realize had been going on. He did a lot of shit that has not been talked about.
And they're actually sworn in as president. Yet, if you think of many of the big speeches, like Reagan's City on a Hill speech, that was given while he was president, or the Tear Down This Wall speech. Those are these opportunities that we should be going for. These are really hard moments to create, but we have enough of the tools to do it. So inevitably, there is a time crunch. You are going to have to do some of these churn speeches, but they should really be avoided. When you leave the administration, you don't want to be thinking, man, I had all these opportunities to tell these great stories, to sell the American dream, or to lay out a vision for what America could be. Before you get in, and when you're in, don't get stuck in the churn, and think, what would a life-changing speech look like? What would a speech be like that everyone is talking about for the next few months? Does a speech look like that the New York Times editorial board is going to have a meltdown over? If you're doing that, odds are you're doing something right. And you need to think about selling something that gets the American people excited because you're genuinely going to help them.
Interesting.
While certainly I couldn't cover everything you need to do to be successful in serving as a communicator in a presidential administration and working with the media, hopefully I gave you enough tools that you need to understand what you would be taking on. Ultimately, the most important thing is the commitment to public duty. If you're going into public service to get something from it, rather than to give to your country, you're getting into it for the wrong reasons. Everyone you work with will be able to see through it. Albeit many of them are in that public service position because they're trying to get something out of it. But if you truly decide to make a sacrificial move and sacrifice for your country, and that's your reason for serving, everyone will be able to tell, and your country will be better for it. But also, you'll be better for it. Whenever you speak with the legacy media, you're not going to live in fear of them. You're going to encounter them as someone entrusted by the American public. And they will notice. They'll notice that you don't crave their approval because you're speaking with the approval of the American people. Whenever you're working with writing speeches or op-eds, you will have a conviction that the American people put you in this position.
Yeah, well, Donald Trump has 34 convictions as a felon. So, you know, there's that.
And that you won't have any type of inadequacies or any other complexes that you're trying to flesh out in your speeches. You're going to be focused on delivering what the American people want. And that is, simply put, a constitutional government. You're coming in to implement the will of the people, the will of the president, and simply put, to help the government function. Thank you.
Hooray, we did it. That one wasn't too bad, I suppose. It wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't as bitey as Bethany. Bethany's just got something about her that just is, she's unhinged, you know? I can't, yeah. Okay, well, thanks for being with me and having a lovely little live. We'll be back on Friday the 13th for our funeral for the MLMs who have dearly departed, and we are also going to be looking at some ones that are intensive care. Or they're in intensive care. They're close. We're close to pulling the plug on them. Well, and maybe one or two that we want to pull the plug on because we hate them. Like Amare, boo, boo. If you've watched Julie Joe's latest video with the top leader of Amare, she's terrible. And she was like, well, I can't say that it was depression. She wants to say that happy juice helps with depression. That's what she wants to say. And it's disgusting. And Julie Joe let her have it. So I was very happy with Julie Joe highlighting them because that's who Tony and Jay are with. I hope these people are jailed before they can try anything. They go against everything America says. Yeah, unfortunately, they are not sentencing him for the fraud in until after the election, which is sucky. But I think it's complex, and I think that at least that judge is not like as permissive as Eileen Cannon, who dismissed his documents case and so on. But yeah, Jack Smith, however, let's go, Jack Smith. He is going to get him. Yeah, all right. Well, have a good night, everybody in America. It's the mid-afternoon, so I'm going to have some crackers. No, it's 4 p.m., sorry, or 3:35 p.m. I'm going to go to the chemist and get some stuff. And yeah, all right. I will catch you on the flip side, Friday the 13th. Wear your best funeral gear. And we do have on Instagram, if we are asking if there's anyone you want to nominate who is close to death or has dearly departed. So we definitely we're going to be talking about Modea, the Moes, possibly Prove It, possibly a coach. Yeah, so we'll see you there. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time. And is Minnie. Minnie. No. Minnie says goodbye, even though she failed at taking over the stream when I got up. All right. Bye.